developers, we'll be talking to a project manager, we'll be talking to software automation tester, and we will try to understand what do they do in their daily life. What are the things they consider in terms of completing their task. So first we have Victoria. Victoria is a project management student, so she can talk about how project managers work, what are the technical things they use, for example, tools, technologies, frameworks, what are the resources they work with, and then we will move to development and testing. So over to you, Victoria.
So I'm project management student. I finished already, and we did work with a couple of apps. And I think the hardest is to work with different teams, different people. So I mean, the framework is the same, and to get requirements from the client right, to get job right, to get the right people. So it's always right, right, right. It's always pressure to get things on time. So for project management, the most important is time and money, finance, and it's lots of pressure from all sides, and because it's always human resources and human error, and in most cases things takes more time than expected. So you need to justify extra resources, or if something doesn't come on time, why it happens, because you are accountable of every team and any delivery you got, and because the framework of agile is very fast, like every 2 weeks, it puts lots of pressure. So it's pressure, timing, and just being good in communication and working with like different mindsets, different people, and like pushing for the product to be delivered and delivered on time. So that's the most important.
Yeah, so it's an interesting point actually. You talked about communication. Communication is the key element, right, in any project. Not just for the project
Yes.
managers, but also for developers, software automation testers, and other resources like DevOps and all. If you can't communicate, I mean, communication is not about language as well, right? Communication is the
No, not really.
way you communicate with others, the information that you exchange with them, whether they understood it properly or not, because that's going to create lots of confusion in delivering your project. So that's an interesting element over there. And the other thing that you talked about, pressure, right? I mean, all the projects are pretty much under pressure, from delivery and budget and resource point of view. So as you mentioned correctly, that project managers should use proper tools like Agile framework, for example. So Agile framework helps you to manage large projects in an agile manner. So that certainly adds value to your project delivery. You can deliver a little bit faster. You can manage complex tasks. You can break them down into smaller pieces, and you can have a little bit better idea on the quality and delivery. And the other important thing that we discuss in the classroom as well, that you involve the stakeholders beforehand. I mean, before the delivery, so they are aware of the progress. They can see the quality, and if they need to make any changes, then that change management process is quite easier in the agile framework than the previous one, like waterfall, for example. So that's a great insight. So yeah, once you I mean, identify all the resources, from your project delivery point of view. So what do you think? Where should those requirements go, or how do you organize your team from project delivery point of view?
So what's required, what kind of what the client wants, and what's the fund, and it's lots of different things what they are creating initially, and how many people I need to create that product, and what's the task, and I need to consult because I'm project manager. I'm not technical person, so the first, to get right people, I go to technical lead who would advise their capabilities, because as a project manager I won't be able to check their technical skills, to make sure they are appropriately allocated. So
Okay, cool.
lots of different things. Like, I mean, I consult before having a team, and I wouldn't hire a team that would be given, and my task is as a project manager is to get the best of people I got, and to because I would be given people not I would choose myself. So I mean, and there is a risk that I would work with like different people, or sometimes nowadays on Spectrum or something. It can be anything.
Yeah, okay, it makes sense basically. So you'll be relying on the technical lead of that particular team
Yes.
or department, because they are going to help you to understand or translate those requirements into technical requirements. So like tech lead from development side, test lead from the testing side. So that's a great thought. Thank you for sharing that. Now over to Jared, who is going
Yes.
to talk about a day of the life of software developer.
Yes. Sure. As a software developer, I my major stake is backend engineering. So I usually start my day around 8:30 a.m. The first thing I do is check overnight mother pipelines, logs, and system alerts to ensure everything is running smoothly. Then I plan my tasks using Jira and Notion, blocking focus the time for deep work like model development or backend improvements. And we usually have a short stand up around 9:30, where we sync up on priorities and brokers. So, and my daily toolkit includes VS Code and JupyterLab for writing code and training models, and GitHub and Git, Jira for version control and task tracking, and Fast API, Docker, and Winters for deploying AI services, and MLflow and Weights for tracking experiments, and for collaboration, we use Slack, Zoom, and Confluence. And throughout the day, I'm usually building or fine-tuning machine learning models in TensorFlow or PyTorch, and writing APIs to expose those models using Fast API. And so reviewing pull requests and doing code reviews, and also working with product teams to turn business needs into AI features, and finally sometimes collaborating on real-time data pipelines with Kafka or Spark. So the biggest challenge I face, so it is the one of the biggest challenges is making sure that machine learning models are not just accurate but also scalable, expandable, and cost effective in production. So striking the right balance between performance and uh, practically is always tricky. So especially under real-time constraints. And I love the creativity involved in solving real-world problems with code and data. So it's incredibly rewarding when something you built makes a product smarter, faster, or more helpful for users, like the recommendation engine we built at Spotify that significantly improved discovery. And my advice would be don't just learn the tools and build real projects. So even a small end-to-end API AI app can help you stand out. So employers love to see not just the skills but the ability to deliver solutions. So yeah, it's okay.
That's an interesting point you said just now, that don't just learn the skills, apply them in practice, right?
Yes.
Doing like developing apps or working on some projects. And that is exactly what we have been doing at LSET as well, where we have skills, where we gain skills,
Yes.
and then we try to apply those into various areas like doing small projects or project-based learning or working on 2 months long project. So basically skills plus opportunities, and that equates to success, right? I think
Yes.
that's a key mantra, I would say. So that's great. You also talked about various tools that you have been using. Do you see
Yes.
any changes in those tools after the AI implementation?
Yeah, sure. So as I said before, I've been using several types of tools. So for example, GitHub, Copilot. Yeah. So in my case, I've definitely seen a shift in the tools we use. So especially with the rise of AI powered development. So for example, GitHub Copilot has changed how many of us approach coding. So it accelerates boilerplate generation and even suggests improvements during development. And also the AI tools, the tools like Cursor and Tabin are also gaining popularity in IDs like VS Code, so helping us code smarter and faster. And even project management tools are evolving. Jira, and Notion are integrating AI features that help generate tasks and summaries and even predict delivery risks based on team requirements. And also, on the MLOps side, platforms like Weights and Visas and MLflow are now adding LLM-based interfaces to help interpret experiment logs and automate compilations. So, yeah, totally yes. It's not just about writing smarter code. So it's about making the whole workflow more intelligent. So the tools are becoming collaborators in the process, and that's where the future is heading.
Yeah, that's interesting. So AI is not replacing the developers. In fact, it is going to assist the developers to do better job, right? Because
Yes,
that's the fear most of us have currently, that whether it is going to replace lots of jobs. But I think it is just going to help everyone to do their job a little bit better.
yes,
But of course, it is going to have little larger impact on some of the industries or some of the jobs. So I think we just need to switch gears and upskill ourselves into uh, the fields where AI can assist and help us to do our job, rather than AI is replacing our job entirely.
yes,
So there's a possibility to replace certain jobs, but not all of them. So
yes,
great. And from software engineer or developer point of view, what
yes.
what do you suggest to the new learners? Like what type of technology or skill sets they should focus on?
Yeah. So okay, let me think. So, in the view of software development, so uh, you know,
I mean,
uh,
like because of AI, lots of people are thinking they need to now leave their existing skill sets and learn Python or learn other tools.
yes,
So do they really need to do that, or they can implement AI features into their existing languages? For example, Java or
yeah,
Node.js. Can they use AI with those languages? That was kind of the
yeah,
question.
yeah. AI features must be implemented. I think, uh, Python. So, in my case, strong programming fundamentals. Yeah. So master at least one backend language like, as you said before, Java or Python or JavaScript or TypeScript. So these are foundational across web and AI and systems work. So, and also in the aspect of APIs and web development, so it is mandatory to learn to build and consume RESTful APIs using frameworks like Fast API, Node.js, or Django. So this helps you understand how systems talk to each other, and also version control and collaboration. Yeah, things like Git and GitHub, Jira. Yeah, these are essential for real-world teamwork, and cloud and DevOps basics. Yeah, getting familiar with Docker, Ventus, and at least one cloud platforms like AWS or GCP. Yeah, so it is most modern systems are cloud native, and so AI and data literacy. So the students don't need to be an ML engineer, but understanding how AI works and how to use the LLM APIs, or how to integrate AI into products will be a big differentiator. And finally, the project-based learning. So, it is very important to build real projects and deploy them and share them. Yeah, it's the best way to learn and stand out, in my experience.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, that's a great advice. I mean, they need to learn lots of tools for sure. But yes,
Yes.
certainly those tools will be a little bit different in future because of the AI implementation or AI emphasis on those. Cool. So once you develop your application, then comes
Yes.
then those applications, basically go to the software testing team. So we will move
Yes.
on to Yvette, and we will hear from Yvette, like what do you guys do once you get that application or code developed from the developers?
I think our job actually starts before the application is developed. So um, my day can, or my activities and what I do in a day can really depend on at which phase we are in a project, or if I'm in an agile setting and work in agile ways, then at what stage in the sprint we are. So traditionally, normally, and if we look at more like waterfall like projects, then as a tester, I would get involved as early as possible. So I would look at requirements. So that could be technical design documents with very complicated diagrams and flows of how a system will integrate and how data will flow and so on. Or there could be user requirements. So at that stage, I would try to write up test cases looking at the user requirements. If they are not clear, I would reach out to the right people, so business analyst normally, to get clarification. But also as a seasoned tester with certain knowledge and understanding of existing systems, we can also identify even missing requirements, which is, I think, very important, especially at the beginning of the project. If we work in agile ways, then again, I would look at requirements which are normally referred to as more like user stories, and I think they are normally more broken down into smaller chunks. And again, I would writing up test cases to have coverage for those user stories. So, and again, there is an opportunity to identify any missing requirements or getting clarification on those, which can be also very helpful for the developers, I think. I hope Jared would agree.
Yes.
Yes, so that can make their job easier as well. And then once the developers deliver, then I would start testing. So based on the test cases we got, and if there are any issues, I would use Jira. I think that's a very common tool to use for defect management. So I would be logging defects. I would also track my test execution, of course. So that's very important for test managers, and I think for the project overall to understand test execution and where we are and whether there needs to be any contingencies because we are falling behind on execution and so on. At the beginning of the project, we would also identify certain risks, but as we go along with testing, certain issues might come up that can also become risks. So my day would normally, in terms of testing, just executing, logging defects, and tracking execution. But also there are meetings every day. So normally there would be a morning call. If it's agile, it would be a stand-up call where everyone from the team in an agile setting, there would be developers and everyone who is working on the call and just discuss what they've done the day before, what they are going to do today, and if they are facing any issues that can block them from delivering what they are supposed to be delivering in a day. Currently I work more in a waterfall sort of environment, so we do have a daily stand-up with testers only, where we discuss similar things, who is working on what they are going to do, and whether they have any issues and so on, any blockers. And then there would be also a defect triage call. So that would be with the developers, and any issues we raised, we would discuss it with them. They would be assigned, if they need any clarification, if something is really not clear to them at that stage, that can be clarified as well. Yeah, and also an important part of my job is defect retesting, so that's part of the daily routine. So that really depends when I do that. So I might do it while I'm testing, and it naturally comes that I get to a stage where I just naturally pick up the same functionality, and if there was a defect raised against it, I just close it. Or it may be that before the defect triage score, that normally happens midday before that, I would go through whatever is assigned back to me and retest it or reassign it back to the developers if I'm not happy with the fix. Yeah, so I think that summarizes my day. If it's an agile project, then we would do normally 2 weekly sprints. So there would be a sort of agile ceremonies involved as well. So towards the end of the project, or maybe I should start with the beginning of the project, there would be sort of course to refine the backlog. So, we would agree what is going to be included in that sprint. There would be a planning poker as well, so, in story estimates and so on. As a tester, I wouldn't have that much input into the planning poker, because I think a lot of it is more on the developers and what they are going to deliver, but I think it's also important for us to have an estimate of how long it will take to test certain things. So I had a job where we worked with a very complex system with like 15 plus components integrated, and there would be tests that would be running over 3 days to make sure that every system updates and the updates come back when financial asset settlements happen. So that's something as a tester I need to factor in for that. If I have a test that takes 3 days to run, I need to make sure that there are no blockers or any issues stopping me to start it 3 days before we are due to finish a sprint or a project or a phase of testing. Yes, and towards the end of the agile projects, there would be a show and tell where developers show what they've done, and again, from my point of view, I think we would discuss if there are any defects that were not fixed and why they couldn't be fixed. But with agile, I think it's in many places it's very much up to the business and the culture, what they implement and how they actually run these things and what they include in these ceremonies. And there would be also, I think, a very important session is the sprint review session, where everyone from the team reflects on how the sprint went, what went well, what didn't go well, and what are the lessons that can be learned and implemented for next time to be more efficient and work more efficiently together as a team.
Thank you very much for sharing this information with us. You kind of explained this very well, the entire process from start to end. You did cover the agile part as well. As we discussed in the classroom as well, that agile concepts are not implemented exactly as it is. So the companies generally modify this and they implement their own version of agile. But having said that, agile kind of help every organization to manage their projects. So the steps that you mentioned, those are the steps pretty much all the companies or majority of the companies follow. So that's a kind of a norm nowadays. In terms of tools, what do you think, what are the tools one should know in terms of getting into software testing field?
I think Jira is a very important tool. It's very widely used. I know there are other tools like ALM, which is, I think, out of fashion now, and more people, I think, use a new tool that Microsoft DevOps. I think
DevOps, yeah, that's
it
getting
has a test
popular as
management
well.
plugin.
Yes.
Yes. So I think many companies are moving towards that. But I think Jira is the mainstream one, and Jira has different plugins as well for test management. funnily enough, Excel is very important to me, because when we write up test cases to upload them onto Jira as bulk, many test cases at the same time within an Excel spreadsheet, but I don't use it as much for calculations than actually writing up text. But in certain cases for calculations, Excel can be very handy if you are validating certain calculations. Browser Stack is a very good tool. Cross-browser testing and cross-device testing is very important, especially when testing client-facing software or websites. And from an automation point of view, so I'm a manual tester. I've been doing the automation course. I've been trying to upskill. I think Selenium is the standard for the industry. So I think Java coding skills and Selenium are very important. And I'm learning JavaScript and Cypress, which I think again is one of the newer tools, but is becoming more and more mainstream and popular. Yeah, and I wanted to add from a tester point of view. So most companies would have automation testers, and it's very important to work with them as well. So I would be helping them to identify test cases which are good candidates for automation, or if opportunity allows it, I would try to script some tests myself.
Right.
And SQL is very important as well. Depending on the company, not everywhere we would have access to the database, but in one of my previous jobs, it was very important for end-to-end validation to run SQL queries and make sure that the data is correctly captured in the backend. Or, if I wanted to manipulate data for testing, which can also happen, that in order to run certain test scenarios, I would have to manipulate the existing data, and a good way of doing that is updating certain things in the database. So an example is if the ISO allowance is maximum, people can invest £20,000 a year, and I want to test on an account where that was made, then I could go into the backend and change the 20,000 that was used up to 10,000, so I can run another test where I see if the system allows me to invest more than another 10,000. This is a more practical example.
Yeah, okay, great point. I mean, you talked about manual testing, and you also talked about automation testing. You talked about Selenium framework and the newer one, which is Cypress. And as you have learned Cypress, and we discussed in the classroom as well. So could you please tell others, like, what are the benefits you think are there using automation frameworks versus manual testing?
Yes, definitely. So automation can help with overall coverage. So, for certain scenarios, there are a lot of permutations, and as a manual tester, you may not have time and ability to run all of those, while automation can help to have better coverage. It can also speed up, of course, testing. And also it's really good when, especially I think for regression testing, when we have an established and fairly tested system. So especially I think in agile environment where there is a lot of deployments happening, it's really good to run a quick validation and making sure that nothing has been broken in the system. Yes, so I think these are the main benefits.
Right. Yeah, certainly. And in regression testing, automation certainly helps a lot. So great insight. Thank you very much for sharing this information with us. Now I have few questions which are common to all of you. So please feel free to answer if you know, if you think you can answer those. So first question is, what skills do you wish you had learned earlier in your life? Or maybe all of you can answer.
Yeah. So yeah, great question. So for me, one skill I really wish I had learned earlier is system design and thinking. Not just how to write code, but how different components fit together in a scalable, reliable way. So earlier in my career, I focused heavily on writing good code, but didn't fully understand how APIs and databases and background jobs and cloud services all interact in a production environment. So once I started working on a real world systems, yeah, I realized how important architecture, latency, trade-offs, and failover strategies are. So another one is, I think, for me, is communication, especially explaining technical decisions to non-technical stakeholders. Yeah, it's a very soft skill, but it has a huge impact on how effectively you can lead, collaborate, and get buy-in for your ideas. So if I could go back, I'd start learning how to design systems and tell the story behind the tech much earlier. Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
makes sense.
yeah.
Anyone else would like to share?
Yeah, sure. I think from my point of view, and being a manual tester is, if it's possible, it's better to start out as an automation tester because my experiences and what I've seen with the companies I worked with is it's much easier being an automation tester and then running manual tests than being mainly a manual tester and trying to get into automation. Yeah, so I feel like there's still demand for manual testers, but now a lot of jobs, even if the job requires people to mainly do manual testing, they still want testers to have exposure to automation and some practice of either helping setting up automation frameworks or running automation tests.
I mean, that's interesting because as you said correctly, that going from manual to automation is a little bit challenging journey because if you start as manual tester, then you have fear of getting into automation because then you think that, I mean, you in the sense one would think that they have to learn lots of languages, they need to be good at programming, they need to understand many other technologies and tool sets. Although it's true in some extent that they do need to understand programming, but it's not that extensive level as developers. So if you start as automation tester, in that course you anyway learn manual testing because you need to understand how to create test plan, how to create test strategy. So all those elements you're going to learn in automation anyway. So learning automation first and understanding manual testing in that process will certainly help you. So I think what you said is quite quite important.
And I think sometimes it's cost pressures as well on companies. I mean, depending on the automation tool and so on, and how much it costs to host a developer machine that can be set up for scripting automation and running automation scripts and so on. So I think it really depends on the companies and their setup. But I think sometimes it's budget as well, and they say no, we only have 2 licenses. So even if there are 6 people in the team who want to get involved in automation, there's only 2 people who can realistically get involved, and there is a bit of a waiting and queue. And I heard it from other testers as well, that they were in a queue to do some automation. So, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that part. But I mean, in terms of budget, like anyway, if you're spending a lot of money on human side of it, doing things manually, then you have that expense there. Although it's not quickly visible like subscription amount, but it is there. And plus, in manual testing, as we learn in the classroom as well, that it's very well possible to get human error involved in the testing phase. So you cannot guarantee that every time you test one particular area, you're going to get 100% success because there's a possibility that person may not be in a good mood or person may have some challenges in covering all the areas in testing. So there is a possibility of mistakes and some bugs can get left behind like this. So certainly automation seems a little challenging, but if you invest in automation first, then eventually your overall cost will come down as time goes by. Cool, thank you. And one last question. What makes someone stand out in your team? What do you think? What are the skill sets or yeah, skill sets mainly?
Yeah. Uh, is it okay if I answer first?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Thank you. So, in my experience, the people who really stand out on the team are the ones who show ownership, clarify, and curiosity. So, technically, they write clean, well documented code, but more importantly, they think beyond the ticket. So they usually ask, how will this scale, and what's the impact on users, or is there a better way to solve this? Yeah. So soft skills matter just as much, but someone who communicates clearly, gives helpful code reviews, and supports teammates during crunch times really elevates the whole team. And lastly, I think adaptability. Yeah, so tech moves fast. Yeah, so the standout people are those who embrace learning, so pick up new tools quickly and are open to feedback. So that mindset is more valuable than any specific framework or language, I think.
So soft skills are important, basically, right?
Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Anyone else would like to answer?
Yeah, I think so. People who learn all the time, like constantly, and don't stop. It's not like you learned one tool because another one is coming up, and kind of accountability and delivery, because it's like code can fail, code can be wrong, things can go wrong, but as long as you're moving forward, and as long as you pick up from failure and going forward, so resilience and learning on the spot, because how it moves. You can make a mistake, but you can't stop. That's the difference between, like, someone who fails just stops, the defeat, and someone who moves forward.
Right. So make sure you upskill yourself, and even before that,
Mm.
one should have an open mind towards their skill set. They should accept that they do not have those skill sets and be ready to
Mm.
upskill themselves. Because most of the times, people are afraid to accept that they do not have those skill sets, and I think that's the main challenge. Ivet, do you have any thoughts?
Yes, so I think for testers, again, is soft skills. Communication is really important. Communicating with everyone, within the project team, from developers. So some technical knowledge is definitely very handy in that case. Not every tester comes from a technical background like myself, so I'm trying to obviously upskill and change that. So as I said, automation is very important, test automation, on top of some coding skills and understanding certain things like how APIs work and so on. I would say also what is very important for testers is have critical thinking. And, it's not just necessarily about doing basic validations, but being able to critically evaluate, especially a more complex system from a point of view of how it integrates and how it behaves or how certain things behave, and just raising certain questions, even if there is not a user story covering it, but just raising it that this still doesn't look right to me or doesn't make sense. In my experience, that can give a lot of confidence for people in the business and so on in the quality of testing that is being done in the team or within the team. And another thing I think that can really set testers apart is the quality of the defects they raise. I think that's very important. So, defects should be well written, well captured, clear, with screenshots. So that can really help the developers, first of all, to understand and fix the problems, and it can make it clear for everyone. Yeah.
Okay, great. So soft skills are important than the skills. I mean, we emphasize that fact again and again. And what are the things they need to know? And you very well talked about automation and what are the things they need to know. And you very well talked about automation versus manual. So that's an important element that they must have learned now. So hopefully they got some guidance. And thanks, Jared, talking about in a detailed manner, talking about what software developers should do. How is your life? How's your day go? And what are the elements that you consider which are important for a person who is willing to get into the software development field? The tools and technologies. The tools are going to change for sure. We always see new tools coming to the market, and older tools are going away. But that's pretty common in every field anyway. But understanding how to identify the tools that you need to do your job is quite an important skill sets or ability, I would say. And thanks, Victoria, sharing with us about the life of project manager. It's certainly a challenging one. It's not technical in many cases. There are some areas where project managers need to have some technical idea about the things, but mainly your job is to coordinate all the things and working with the resources. And as you said very well, that you need to manage budget. You need to make sure the project is not going over. You need to make sure that you handle pressure, because there are times where you have tremendous pressure. So that's pretty much it. So anyway, thank you for everything, and hopefully we'll meet again. And in the next session, we'll focus more on the soft skill part. Thank you for joining us. I'll
Thank you.
see you
Thank
in the
you.
next episode.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.